Hello and welcome to you all. And with the advancing winters, the visibility around an airport is going to be bad because of fog or mist, wherein we are supposed to follow the instrument approach procedure, primarily the ILS approaches. It may be a VOR or a NDB approaches. So the instrument approach procedure is a series of maneuvers which an aircraft has to carry out while transitioning from the en route to the landing phase. So for example, if one particular aircraft is coming from this direction and coming over an VOR, and let us say that this is the airport, from reaching over this VOR, how do I come to and land? Before that, I have to report that. Okay, thereafter, I have to follow a series of procedures like going on a track like this, leveling it out at certain point of time, then carry out a reciprocal turn, and then come over here and then commence descent and the land. So how do we transition from this en route mode, okay, right up to the landing is done through this instrument approach procedure. Now let's come back. So this is one such instrument approach procedure. The instrument approach procedures plate looks like this. However, for explanation purposes, I will be zooming in and will explain the instrument approach procedure. This is the upper part, or what we call it as a plan view of that instrument approach procedure. In that, whenever we are reading this instrument approach procedure, we will be reading from the top to the bottom and from the left to the right, even when carrying out a briefing. So this particular airport, the designator, that is the ICAO designator for this airport is Victor Oscar Hotel Yankee, whereas the IATA code is Bravo Papa Mike, and the name is Hyderabad. It is published by Jefferson, and the date of publication is 13th of Feb 09, and the chart is being filed, or it is the index number of the chart is 12-1. In some of the chart, you will find the effective date written here. That means to say that this chart was published on this particular day. However, this chart will come into effect, okay, on that particular day if it is written here, like 20 Feb 09 effective date. So this, however, this chart was published on 13th of February, it will become into effect on to 28 Feb 09. This is airport name is Hyderabad, and we will be addressing that airport on the RTF as Hyderabad, and it is located in India, and it is for an ILS approach runway 27. And thereafter, the next box is the ATIS frequency, which is 126.8. For the beginners, the ATIS is that frequency. Once we tune to that particular frequency, we will be able to hear the present weather conditions and the information which are useful for us to come and land at Hyderabad. Hyderabad approach of frequency is 132.4, and the tower will be addressed as Begumpet, and the tower frequency is 122.25 is the frequency. The ILS frequency itself, the localizer frequency is identified. Localizer frequency is India Hotel Yankee Delta 110.1, and the final approach course is 271. The final approach course is that path which the aircraft has to come to land at this particular airport. This is expressed in magnetic tracks. The magnetic track is 271. The localizer outer marker, when you are on glide slope, it is 3270 feet. Okay, what it matters is that, okay, this is the localizer outer marker. When you are at the localizer outer marker on the glide path, your indicated altitude will be 3270 feet. This is the vertical profile of that particular chart. Now, ILS DA/DH. So, since this is a precision approach, that means to say that it is going to give me a guidance on whether I'm left or right of track, that is the horizontal guidance, and I am going to be getting the vertical guidance, that is whether I am above the desired glide path or below the desired glide path. So therefore it is known as a precision approach instrument. Okay, so it is on a precision approach instrument, the minimum altitude up to which the aircraft can descend is known as the DA, and if it is expressed in terms of height, it is known as the DH, for which it is 1915 feet, or DH is 200 feet, that is above the ground. So airport elevation, that is at the airport, 1742. However, at the runway threshold, the elevation is 1715. Let's have a look here. So here it is written here, runway 1715. Going back to the previous one, here if you see a circle, when you see a circle, this is known as the MSA. The MSA is the minimum safe altitude. So the minimum safe altitude is derived from the VOR, that is Hotel Yankee VOR. So on a radius of 25 nautical miles centered around Hotel Yankee VOR, if you are maintaining (25 nautical miles centered around the VOR Hotel Yankee), within 25 nautical miles, if you are maintaining 3,600 feet, the obstacle clearance which is ensured is 1,000 feet above the highest obstacle. Now, you may find another variation to this. For example, if you see a line like this, and on the left side of the line it is written, let's say 3,600, this is the original one, and another quadrant is drawn here, and then let's say this is 4,100, another is 4,000. So this means to that okay, in this sector which is marked from 0,010 to let's say 110, and this is 190. From a track of 010 to 110, the minimum safe altitude is 4,100, and from 110 to 190, the minimum safe altitude is 4,000 feet. This 3,600, 4,100, and the 4,000, they are known as the MSA. The name still remains the same, but however, it will be known as the minimum sector altitude. So that means to say that if you are in this sector, you can descend only up to 4,100. Let's move on further. This shows you the misapproach procedure. Misapproach procedure is carried out at your minima. So once you reach the minimum altitude up to which you can descend, at that point of time, I am required to identify that particular airport with visual references. These visual references may be the approach lighting system, maybe the lightings onto the runway, or the markings onto the runway. Depending upon the instrument approach procedure you carry out, the number of lightings which you are supposed to see is different. If you are able to see and identify these lighting or the markings, then you can continue and land. However, if you are unable to see these lightings, then I am supposed to carry out a go around, which is known as the misapproach, and the procedure which I am going to be following is what we call it as a misapproach procedure. The misapproach procedure, here it is: climb straight ahead to 4,600 feet, then turn left to join the VOR or NDB holding, or is directed by the ATC. So this particular statement is denoted or here in this by the dashed line. I'll be climbing straight ahead to 4,600 feet. Thereafter, I'll be turning left to join over the VOR here. This is the misapproach procedure. The altimeter setting, the elevation of the airport is 61 hectopascal. That means to say that the pressure at this place will be 61 hectopascals, removed from the standard 1013. So therefore, if you multiply this 61 okay, by the standard 27 feet per hectopascal, you will get the elevation of this particular airport. The transition level will be given by the ATC, whereas the transition altitude is 7,000 feet. So there is one caution written here: simultaneous holding at VOR and the localizer outer marker is not authorized at the same level. If, let us assume that there are a couple of traffic, because of which the aircraft has to hold over this. So therefore, if you have to hold at this place, which is over the VOR, and which is at the outer marker at this place, two aircrafts cannot hold at the same time if their flight level is the same. You may be coming from any direction onto this airport, okay, there is to this VOR from any direction. So there are a couple of procedures which needs to follow, which will be based onto the inbound of this VOR holding. Here, if you see the inbound of this VOR holding, this is the VOR which is designated by this symbol, and the inbound is 092, whereas the outbound is 272. So now, depending upon the inbound and the direction on which I am coming, I have to follow certain procedures. Now, let's have a look at this. This is what we call it as a hole. Okay, the inbound of the hole is 092. So now, this entire area around this VOR will be divided now into three sectors. The name of the sectors are 1. Direct, 2. Parallel, and 3. Offset. So now, in order to join this hole, I have to draw and establish these sectors. How do I draw it? The inbound is 092, and I will now make an angle of 70 degrees to this inbound track, 70 degrees. So now this is 092, 92 minus 70, which is 022. So now I will draw this line 022, which is 70 degrees, and I will extend this line across this VOR. Anytime, let's mark it for 022, and the opposite direction will be 202. So in order to join this hole, okay, depending upon which direction you are approaching, I will divide this into sectors. Now let us draw the original inbound track line also here. So let us assume that my aircraft is coming from any direction, which is from 022 right up to 202. Anytime I'm coming from this direction, my aircraft is approaching from this direction, or from this direction, or from this direction, I am on a direct sector. Direct sector. That means to say that I will come over this VOR and I can straight away join the holding and keep holding like this if it is required. So now, anytime you are coming from this sector, that is, my aircraft is approaching from this direction, that is, from 271 right up to 022. 271, likewise, up to a direction track of 022. This sector will be named as a parallel sector. And the procedures I am going to be following is that I will come over at this VOR, fly parallel to the inbound track. The inbound track was 092, but I am not flying on 092. I am flying the opposite of it, that is 272, fly for 1 minute, thereafter carry out the red one turn and the home on to the beacon. Then now I am ready to join the hole. This is the procedure I follow, and the sector from which you are arriving is what we call it as a parallel sector. Now, the third sector, which is the offset sector, is that anytime my aircraft is approaching from this direction, that is, right from 271 right up to 202, I am on the offset sector. And if I come onto this coming from this direction, now I will fly on a direction which is 30 degrees to the 271. That is 271 minus 30, which is equal to 14241. I will fly on the direction of 241 for 1 minute and thereafter carry out a red one turn and come like this and continue and join the hole like this. Okay, so this sector is what we call it as a offset sector. Now, after having joined the hole, in case if the aircraft has to wait because of certain reason, you will keep orbiting in this hole. Now, the ATC is cleared you to proceed outbound. So now once you are here, once he cleared you to proceed outbound, I will be proceeding outbound on a direction of, on a track of 092, which is also written in the vertical profile. I will show you the vertical profile here. In the vertical profile, you are over at the VOR and at a height of 4,600 feet, and thereafter I will be proceeding out on a magnetic track of 092 till the time I reach over the locator auto marker. At the locator auto marker, I will be carrying out a right procedure turn on a direction of 136, fly for 1 minute, and thereafter carry out a red one reciprocal turn on a direction of 316, and we'll have to wait till the time I intercept the localizer signal. This is the indication of the localizer signal. Once I intercept the localizer signal, then I will be proceeding inbound, that is on the final approach course of 271. So now let's have a look at the vertical profile. In this vertical profile, once I am cleared to proceed outbound over at the VOR at 4,600 feet, I will be flying on a track of 092 and the descent from 4,600 to 3,300 feet. Here I will be carrying out the right procedure turn and then coming over here and will intercept the final approach course here. Having intercepted the final approach course, I will be flying on the final approach course till the time I intercept the glide path. Once I intercept the glide path, then I will commence my descent. Now, while passing over the locator auto marker or 5 DME from Hyderabad, I will have a cross check. This point in the precision approach is called as the final descent point. At this final descent point, that is over the auto marker, which is at the distance of 5 DME from the ILS Hyderabad, the indication on my altimeter should be 3270 feet. Then you are correctly placed onto that particular ILS. At this point of time, my ILS indicator will be actually at the center. From here onward, I will follow the guidance from the ILS, continue on a track of 291 till the time I reach the minimum altitude, which we call it as a DA or the DH, which is 1915 feet. At 1915 feet, I am supposed to look out for the visual reference with which I can identify the runway, and if I have established the visual reference for that particular runway, then I can continue and land. If unable to identify that particular runway, then I will carry out the miss approach procedure, which I have already mentioned. Okay. Now, this is a ILS approaches. Now, for any reason, your aircraft is unable to get the signal of the glide path, or the transmitter itself on the ground has become unserviceable. However, the localizer is working fine. In that case, I still can carry out this instrument approach procedure, but without any vertical guidance. So I will be able to have the horizontal guidance, whether I'm left or right of the runway center line, but I will not be able to get the guidance whether I'm above the glide path or below the glide path. So in that case, I will be carrying out a descent which is based onto the ground speed of that particular aircraft. It is given here. Here what it reaches, depending upon the ground speed. For example, I'm taking a ground speed of 120 knots. If you are maintaining a ground speed of 120 knots for a 3 degrees glide path and a gradient of 5.2%, this particular aerodrome ILS is giving you a glide path of 3 degrees. So then you are supposed to require to maintain 646 rate of descent. If you are maintaining the 646, you will be following the correct path. So now let's have a look here. I am at 5 DME. My height was 3270. As I keep descending, my distance will be reducing and then my height also will be reducing. So these are given here. If you are on localizer and the glide slope is out, you can carry out the instrument approach procedure, that is localizer only approach, wherein the DME from the India Hotel Yankee Delta is at 5 nautical miles. Your height should be 3300, and when you are at 4 nautical miles, your height should be 2990, and so on and so forth. So at each and every checkpoint, that is at 4 miles or 3 miles, I am going to be cross-checking my altitude on the altimeter. If the altimeter is showing higher than, let's say, 2990 in this case, I am above that glide path, or I am above the desired path on which I am supposed to descend. In that case, I will increase the rate of descent to come onto the desired path. And anytime my altimeter is showing any height which is below 2990, I am below the desired path, so I will reduce my rate of descent so that I follow this desired path. In case localizer only approach is carrying out, the minima now has increased to 2,300 feet MDA, and the DH is 2,300 feet DA, and the DH is 585. These approaches can be carried out depending upon the present weather condition in Hyderabad. Okay, that is the visibility, the height of the climb above the ground. Now let us say, what does it mean? That this portion, after having carried out the whole, okay, this portion is what we call it as an outbound, and thereafter at outer marker, I am going to carry out the procedure turn and reach this. This portion is the place where I am going to transition myself from the intermediate approach segment to the final approach segment. The initial approach segment, intermediate approach segment, and final approach segment. So therefore, in this final approach segment, this is marked by the locator outer marker. In this case, this will be known as the, this point is known as the final descent point, since it is a ILS approach. But now let us assume that you are carrying out the localizer only approach, which is a non-precision approach. In this case, when you are passing this particular point, you will not call out as final descent point. It will be known as the final approach fix. After having crossed this final approach fix on a non-precision approach and the final descent point on a precision approach, then you are establishing the final approach segment. So now, the meaning is that before establishing the final approach segment, that is before crossing the final descent point or final approach fix, okay, if the visibility or the RVR at Hyderabad drops below RVR below 720 or visibility below 800 meters, in that case, I am not supposed to, or you are not supposed to continue. You are not authorized to continue the approach. But however, after having crossed these 2 points, or after establishing the final approach segment, even if this minima, weather minima, goes below the printed minima here, prescribed minima, then you can continue till the time you reach your minima, that is 1915 feet. At 1915 feet, if you are able to establish the visual reference, you will continue the approach, and if you are not able to establish the visual references, then you will carry out the misapproach procedure. Similarly, for this particular figure which is given is whenever the full approach lighting system is in service, when the approach lighting system is out, the minima, that is the RVR minima, has now increased to 1200. The similar figure is written here. This is in case of a glide slope out, that is if you are carrying out an only localizer approach, then thereafter the visibility criteria with full ALS and without ALS is given in this. Okay, I will not be explaining this part, the circle to lane. Basically, most of the airliner, okay, in most of the states or most of the country are not allowed, do not use this circle to lane procedures. Some additional point on this particular chart is that, okay, if you see here, there is a caution here. The caution says that identify Hyderabad airport before landing in order not to mistake with Hakimpet. So that means to say that there is another airport by the name of Hakimpet. So do not mistake Hakimpet as Hyderabad and land at Hakimpet. Okay, it sounds pretty simple, but it does happen sometimes. Okay, this is a word of caution which is given. So you need to positively identify the Hyderabad, okay, airport from the frequency you tune in and from the Morse code, what you listen to it, etc. And here you have got couple of zones here. VOR, this is a restricted area 186, and the danger area 187 is printed here. This is primarily because of these airfields. Okay, the flying into that local flying area without the permission is not authorized, so it becomes a restricted. However, this becomes a danger area. And if you see once again, there are dots here with some numbers printed. So these are the height of those or the altitude of those obstructions around the airport. There is an obstacle here, the height of which is 2162. And there are a couple of, this is a tower, the height is 2170. And here if you see, this is distinct with one bold arrow, with double-headed arrow, and the height is written here 2450. This double-headed arrow means that this is the highest obstacle around this area. Now let's go further down and just have a look at the vertical profile once again. Okay, here it is written here, approach via locator automarker holding. Descent in the locator automarker holding pattern is 3300 to intercept the localizer. That means to say that in the plan mode, we had two holding points. One is holding point at Hotel Yankee, another is holding at localizer automarker. Okay, in this case, if you are holding at localizer automarker, is it says in the vertical profile, okay, and it says that you are approach via locator automarker holding, descend in localizer automarker holding pattern up to 3,300 feet. You are going to be carrying out in the hole and the descent to 3,300 feet to intercept the localizer. Once you intercept the localizer, and then thereafter you can commence the final approach segment. So with this, I'll be finishing the class. This primarily is a class on how to transition ourselves from en route to the landing phase using the instrument approach procedure. In this case today, it is Hyderabad instrument approach procedure, ILS runway 27. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any queries or comments, you can give me directly on my comment section in the YouTube. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.